Hello, you're listening to the Home Improvement Report Podcast 2.0, and this is episode number 38. Today, my guest is Alex Guthrie, and we talk about shelter in place, day 48. I'm your host, Gary Neidert. Welcome to today's episode where I talk with my friend Alex Guthrie about what he has experienced during the shelter in place, observations of what other businesses are doing, and much more. He's been on the Home Improvement Report before, and I always enjoy his point of view along with what he has to say about current events. So let's get right into the interview now. I know you're going to enjoy my conversation with Alex Guthrie. Hello, this is Gary Neidert with the Home Improvement Report podcast. I'm here with my good friend Alex Guthrie of Remodel Revolution and radio. Sometimes radio, sometimes not. I guess it depends. Depends on what's going on.
Depends on what's in my head when I announce it.
But today is April 29th of 2020, and I checked it out and double-checked it again. Dallas County went on shelter in place in March 11th or whatever it was, 11th or 12th.
Middle of March, yeah.
Middle of March, but it counts down to 48 days of shelter in place.
48 days without business.
48 days without business. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it
has not been fun for most of us.
No. And it's going to be an interesting recovery process.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been listening. I try to listen to different things in different industries. I listened to a podcast about the car industry and what they're doing. Oh, Hertz. Hertz reported that they're about to file bankruptcy. So think about that.
Hertz is hurting.
Hertz is hurting. Yes, it is. So they were talking about how the influx of all the vehicles that Hertz has into the used car market.
Wow.
And then how that impacts the auto manufacturers as well.
So I'm assuming they'll come back as something, right?
Oh, I would hope so. I mean, but unfortunately, there's going to be companies that
it's happening. It's happening everywhere.
They don't come back.
Yeah. And a lot of small companies.
Yeah.
Hello, Gary. How are you?
I'm good, Alex. How you doing?
I'm good. So you've survived the last 48 days.
Yes, I have.
And I have too.
Yeah.
In our little man caves.
Yes.
You were telling me how much you like my fish I put up. I caught 25 years ago.
I like that back there in the background on the wall.
Yeah. That was back in the day when you actually mounted them and put them on the wall.
Yeah. Oh, my grandfather had all kinds of fish in his he had a workshop. He had a hardware store when I was little. And all during the time my mother was growing up, they had a hardware store, and he liked to fish. And there was all kinds of fish mounted everywhere. He brought, whenever he retired, sold the business, he brought those back home. And it was so cool as a kid to look up and at all those fish mounted on the wall. He even had an little alligator.
Well, if you look at the picture over my left shoulder, that's an alligator.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a harrowing experience for the entire country, really the entire globe.
Yeah.
But for our country, which is what we're all focused on, it's been a pretty dicey deal here. So I think the first rent day, when this first, the first of this month, people were kind of, they were ready to pay their rent anyway. They had the money. They withstood it. Well, second rent day, and that was my prediction, was second rent day, things would get pretty nasty because people that own businesses have to pay rent on their lease if they don't own it. If they do own it, they've got to make their bank payment. They got to pay taxes. They've got things that they have to do. And the bottom line is, it doesn't seem to be as deadly. It's bad. The virus is bad. There's no discounting that. But people are kind of looking at it now going, well, what's worse? I starve to death or
yeah. And even at that, I was reading something a while ago, and I forgot who published this, but the hydrochloroquine or whatever that's called, this report was from not the World Health Organization, but somebody else that would be up there like that. That was their recommendation for several years for all these different COVID type viruses that were
That's
coming
probably
along
why
at
they
the time.
started using it to begin with.
But there has been a pushback from people wanting to resist using that, but it works. And so I don't know if it's politics, if it's money or whatever, but
I think it's all the above.
All the above. I think what it comes down to is there are fixes out there for this. There are cures that
they just announced today that they have a vaccine, and that it's a high success rate they're going to start using.
Yeah,
and so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
but we'll get through it. We get through it. We're resilient. We're a resilient animal. We are. Much to the dismay of the other animals around us.
We've come into forced innovation in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, these are the things that cause the innovation. These are the things that move us forward, unfortunately. But one of the things that I have been watching, like everybody, all of this stuff going on, and I have questioned since the very beginning how you hide from a virus. I haven't understood the whole mindset of shelter in place. I understand if people are dropping dead, like they predicted, like if there had been actually the 2.2 million or whatever they predicted could happen. I get that. However, our bodies are made to allow these bacteria to get in them, or these viruses or whatever they are, and we build a resistance to them. And if we shelter in place, we'll never have a resistance to it. So they're saying, well, shelter in place till we have a vaccine. Well, that's ridiculous. That could go for, that's dumb. You couldn't do it.
Yeah. And there are some who are against vaccines that say,
and that's their choice.
Yeah.
So how about an adult kind of solution? Like, if you're so worried about getting it that you're paralyzed, then stay home. But the rest of us have to earn a living, so we'll take the chance. And that's how I feel about it. You know? Now, if I get it, I may say, "Boy, that was dumb."
well, go back to Phil Crone. The episode that you did with Phil Crone, and where he, I didn't get to listen to it, but he shared with you what his experience was going through it. And what was it? What was his experience?
He's a young, healthy guy. He's a runner. He's in his 30s. And he barely even knew he had it. He had some mild symptoms. And his wife, who they also suspect had it, I don't know if she was tested, never came down with anything. And so younger people just don't react to it like older people. It's like there's a certain group of people that get it and they're in danger. People my age and your age, age-wise. But then, of course, people with underlying conditions. And then occasionally, very, very, very rarely, a young person gets it and doesn't handle it well, or it takes their life, sadly, very sadly.
Yeah.
But that's the case with any virus, with the flu or even allergy. There's a gazillion things that can do that to us.
Yeah.
And so the reality is that we live in a world, and I wrote this, and I think I talked about this a few weeks ago. the earth has been trying to get rid of us ever since we've been here. Viruses, comets, floods, hurricanes. The earth fights us every day, man, every day. So I'm not going to cower to any of this stuff, because if it's my time, it's my time. And that's just kind of how I feel about it this time in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, we've taken precautions. We go outside and we do wear the mask when we go outside, and we make sure that we wash our hands or put the hand sanitizer on. But you know what? The hand sanitizer, that's something we really need to be doing all along.
Well, and I've never really, I have bottles of it in my truck that I never used till now.
Yeah.
Now I feel, I'm like, geez, I just put gas in the truck. I need,
Yeah.
And so I use it. Yeah, no kidding. But so far we've survived.
Yeah.
And we will move on and adjust, and society will come back and business will come back. I'm very confident of that. I'm confident that it's going to come back better. Now, when we go through a recession or a depression or whatever you want to call them, whatever we are and are about to go through financially, or we have these periods where business is just horrible for whatever reason, there are certain businesses that are going to go away and not come back. There are certain companies that will go away and not come back.
Yeah. Good ones and bad ones.
Good ones and bad ones.
Yeah.
It's sort of the strong will survive, and that's what you want. You want the strong to survive.
Yeah.
And then there's the other guys that are always going to, like me, that are just small enough that it's easy for us to ramp back up, you know, and we keep getting by, and you look up and 40 years have gone by and you go, boy, I've been through about 3 or 4 of these things. I keep going through it and I keep hanging in there and so that, I don't know where you put us in that classification. We're not maybe stronger, but we're smarter. And so you end up being a little wiser every time this happens, and you look back and you go, what do I need to do? Well, let me tell you, I've been telling people quite a bit the last few years, young guys, young men and women that come to me that are in business, and they want to, they want my input and advice and things like that. Happens all the time. And I tell them, be prepared. Be prepared. You don't need to have that wrap on your truck advertising your business. You don't need to spend that $3,000. You don't need to have staffed up to where I've got a guy, young guy. He's so staffed up with this company with superintendents and stuff. He doesn't even know what's going on his jobs. He has no idea. I've been there, and I'll tell you, when everything stops dead in its tracks, that's when you find out that you've been servicing overhead that whole time.
Yeah.
And you think you're making money, and you are, but the money you're making is going right out to service that overhead.
Yeah. One of the guys that I talked to when I was still with the Home and Garden shows, I was trying to get him to exhibit in the Dallas show. And he had been in the shows before. I think he did quite well. But at the time he was in the shows, it was during that boom time, whenever it was, I'm not sure. But then it went through
pre-08.
Yeah. And then once we went through 07, 08, he had to skinny down. He had 2 or 3 crews going. And I talked to him probably around 2015, something like that. And he said, I've got 1 crew and I'm making just as much money with a whole lot less hassle right now.
Well, that's what I did. And so I went from 3 or 4 superintendents and an office and office help and all that kind of stuff. We were jamming. We thought we were kicking it in the rear. And when it all stopped, I realized, and that's how I learned that lesson. And I realized that I had been servicing debt. And the mindset is for some of us, and particularly for me, but I think I know other people that are the same way. The mindset is, I just need to get more people to help me run more jobs and get more cash flow. And if every job I make money on, then I'm ahead. Well, first of all, you don't make money on every job. That's false. It doesn't happen. You may think you do,
Yeah.
but then you find out at the end of the job where everybody's been screwing things up that have been having to be done 2 or 3 times, and you didn't know about it, and it costs you money every time. Anyway, you find out how that overhead's been eating up your profits, basically. And so I made the decision that I was tired of being stressed. And so at that point in my 50s, I'd worked my entire life. I'd worked hard. I'd built a great business, and then it got hammered. And I said, I have to make a decision. I either want to stay happy in life. I love the business, but I'm getting really burned out because I'm tired of stressing over it. So I got rid of all the overhead, brought it all home, started running things myself. And I've got to tell you, I agree with the guy you were talking to, because I don't have as much, but I don't have as much to take care of.
Right.
And so it's a great balance. If things get lean, hopefully I've made enough money that I have enough money in the bank to kind of carry me through that till it gets better, and it almost always does. And if things are going really good, then I can feel real good about all that stuff. So I like the balance. Now, there's plenty of people that are doing big, giant things and doing them well, making tons of money, doing really well, and I'm very happy for them because we need those people in our business. And so let's talk about how some of the people that I've been dealing with and getting bids and things. I want to tell you about some of the things that I'm hearing from these vendors. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I'd like to know what they're doing to navigate through this, how they're navigating through it. Did it? And I guess it caught everybody off guard. But what they're doing.
Gary, it was like an overnight shutdown.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even there wasn't any ramping down. Nobody had the opportunity to plan for any of this.
Well,
Just didn't have the opportunity. So let's say you're a supplier, and let's say you're a tile supplier, and you've had all of these builders and contractors and designers and homeowners in your store every day, packing in there, buying stuff. You're ordering stuff by the truckload. You've got a warehouse. You're ramped up in where everybody's going just toe to toe to try to keep up with everything. You can't keep enough salespeople. You can't keep you're running out of room. You may have another warehouse that you're having to stock. I mean, this is what has been happening. This is you can't get enough supplies. And then all of a sudden, the governor of your state says, you can't allow anybody in your showroom. What? He tells all of the businesses you're dealing with, you can't walk into somebody's house and remodel their bathroom. Well, wait a minute. Well, what about all that money that's right here in the hinterlands? There's all this financial stuff going on because people have paid me to buy stuff. I've ordered stuff, and now I can't get it. Wow. It's a mess. It's a total mess.
Now, before all this started, did you have any kind of sense that this horse has been running way too long, too fast? Something's about to happen. Did you ever have that kind of sense?
Absolutely, I did. Absolutely, I did. I talked about it quite a bit last year, actually. That I felt like the market had gotten too hot. And what I was seeing, and what a lot of people were seeing, but no one wanted to really talk about it, was that we were looking at kind of market value and how housing was getting, particularly in the inner city, for sure in the inner city, and the connecting suburbs like Plano and Frisco and all the northern suburbs, and then maybe a little bit on the sides, the east and west suburbs. I don't know about them as much, but you have multiple giant corporations moving into our area, right? Like every day you hear about another one coming. And they're bringing in these people to manage these companies and work for these companies, and they pay them a certain amount of money. And the idea is that you have to be able to provide housing for them. And ideally, it's a house that they can purchase, because you want people to live and own a house in your city. You don't want everybody to be a renter. You want people to own houses. It gives them, a vested interest in your community. And so ideally that's what happens. Well, what we were seeing was that people were the housing was outpricing people's ability to pay for it. So the mid-management people that were coming in from all these corporations could no longer afford to live in the inner city or even really in the immediate suburbs. They were having to go further and further and further out. That starts creating issues. And so all of a sudden you're building multifamily housing, your apartments everywhere in this town, everywhere, every corner, river bottoms, everywhere, wherever there's dirt, there's an apartment complex going up. And, that's okay until, it just goes in cycles. You start seeing these trends that you've seen over the years. I've seen them before. Apartments all get leased out. And then people start buying houses, and people want to move out of the apartment to houses. That's why they came here. And then all of a sudden they can't afford the houses. And then there's an apartment glut, and it just goes in these cycles. And so I was concerned that our market had gotten so hot, and it was starting to show up. I think if you looked at the last year, you would see that it was getting harder and harder to sell homes. There's more and more yard signs out. If you drove through the neighborhoods, more and more people were having to wait longer and longer to turn a home, whether to sell it or purchase it. And so you could kind of see something in certain neighborhoods, certain price ranges was changing. The thing that has amazed me, here's a great story. You're going to love this. So I do a remodel on a house recently, finished it 2-3 months ago. The owner lives out of the country, and they kind of split their residency from out of the country to here. So they buy this house, and this is in a neighborhood of about $1 million properties. I mean, which is really not a big deal anymore. But in this neighborhood, this was just little clapboard houses up until 10 years ago. And now they're being bought by builders, knocked down, and they build these houses, and these houses sell for in the $1 million range. So I left my yard sign up in these people's yard because I want my name out in that neighborhood. And I've done lots of work over the years in neighborhoods, so I want people to see I was back in there and all that stuff. And I'm getting phone calls 2 or 3 times a week now from that sign. My client's still out of town. They don't know my sign is still in their yard. And guess who's calling me? People are calling me wanting to know if I want to sell that house. They think I'm the builder of the house. And so I have realtors calling me. I have other people calling me. I'm so-and-so. I'm calling you to see, how much you want for that house. And I'm like, wow. So that $1 million range, particularly in that neighborhood, is strong as it can be. And I'm really impressed by that. Really.
So do you think this is people native to Texas or that have lived here for?
Relocated.
Relocated. Yeah. So they're used to paying $2-3 million for a home.
Well, and when a company moves you have a moving allowance, and you have they may be buying part of the house for you. There's all kinds of things like that. But one of the things that I see in this, I think that I'm seeing, is that people are very confident that the economy is going to come back. They're not afraid to spend that kind of money. And the other thing that I think, and trust me, I'm no economist, as everybody that knows me knows. But it seems to me that the economy has been strong for so long now, for the last 3 years, 4 years really, that enough money has been made. People have made enough money. They have the ability to buy these houses or remodel them or whatever it is they want to do. They have the money in the bank, which is pre 2008 mentality.
Right.
So that's my impression on that, and it makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I'm not going to say we're bulletproof, but we're strong. We're strong.
Well, it's something that I began to get a sense that not so much for construction. This was last year, March, April, something like that. And I made the comment to some people around me, and I don't know that it set well. I think it filtered up the chain.
You've done that before.
Yeah, I think it filtered up the chain, and they didn't like it. But anyway, I just had a sense that the way that we do business was going to change. Something was going to be
an event
different. And I didn't know what, I didn't know how, and here we are. We're in the place of people are they're doing so much business by way of video, Zoom.us. The kids out of school, and they're learning through Zoom.us.
Virtual world. Yeah.
Yes, and I talked to a guy yesterday. He is he works in the food service industry, the commercial food service industry, and his company manages like cafeterias in large office buildings and for large corporations, so that the employees can eat in the cafeteria and so on. And his world has just been turned upside down.
Because nobody's there to eat.
Nobody's there to eat, but they're trying to bring employees back into these places. But in that process, it's going to become more labor intensive. They don't have the luxury of allowing someone to go to a buffet line and scoop up their own food.
I still think this is temporary. I still think it's temporary.
I do too. I do too.
There's going to be a period of time coming up when we're kind of back to kind of, and I think here's the big deal, the big game changer. Game changer is we have a vaccine. That's a game changer. Once that happens, then everybody can just go, fine, I'll go get the vaccine. And the virtual. So I call one of my tile suppliers because I'm trying to quote a bathroom. And I can't get my sales lady on the phone. I'm going, man, she must really be busy. So finally I call another number, get another person, and she explains to me that this tile supplier, which is one of the largest in DFW, big showroom out by the airport, have furloughed half their staff.
Really?
The other half of people that are still working half of them are working virtually from home. And then they're dividing time for salespeople, only 2 at a time in this massive showroom and only by appointment only. And then 1 or 2 people, a small staff, staffing in their warehouse to pull orders. And so I talked to a plumbing company, my main plumbing company, one of the busiest plumbing companies in Dallas. I've known the owner for 15 years or maybe 20 years. When he was just running, we've been through these things together for all these years, where they'll have 15 or 20 trucks running, crews running, and then I'll say, hey, man, we'll go through a recession. How you doing? I'm down to 4 trucks.
Yeah.
And now he's up to 60 trucks. Right? I mean, that's how busy they are. They're huge. They've gotten huge. And I talked to one of his guys the other day, and he said, "Oh no," he goes, "When they shut us down," he said, "we haven't been in the office in 4 weeks." And when I called, because I was looking for a bid from him, and he said, we've had to all work from our trucks, and we're only working maybe 20 hours a week, and because they're afraid to go in people's houses.
Yeah.
You know, and so the whole world has changed for everybody just overnight.
Yeah.
Just amazing when you're talking to these people. And these are not, these aren't big, giant national corporations. These are homeboys.
Local small businesses.
Yeah.
And a small business can mean 500 employees or less.
Right.
But still, if I were to guess, based on what you're saying with the number of trucks, he might have had 100 employees or something like that.
I would imagine at least that.
Yeah.
I would imagine at least that. Plus, you have a whole support structure for those people. You have a warehouse, and you have parts people, and you have all, emergency crews, and, in a plumbing company, you have all different facets, people, gas people, water people, sewer people, all these kind of people, trim people, whatever. And so this is kind of what now after we came back from the 2008 depression, people had, of course, ramped down. They had to ramp down for that. And then there was this build back where everybody was having to sort of ramp back up. And so they might have gotten down to a third or a half of what they had in 06 and 07. And then after 08 through 10 was a nightmare for everybody. And so they lost a huge part of their business, but then all of a sudden it started slowly ramping up. That comeback lasted, 5 years, 6 years?
Well, let me throw this out there to you.
Yeah.
How do you think, with the price of oil dropping like a rock, how do you think the price of oil is going to affect the recovery process?
I think the oil's going to be back.
Yeah.
I don't worry about that too much. There's too many people, too many countries too invested in the price of oil being high. There's just too much involved. I mean, you can't keep it low. Too many people go broke.
Well, I know, yeah. But it's just, as we've been going along, and I've talked to all these different people and watched the news of what's happening, I'm starting to see how everything is so interconnected.
It is.
That one part of the economy affects the another part, and then it just it's like
we have a lot of interesting hurdles. I think.
Yes,
I think there's this strong desire to pull businesses out of China, for instance. So there's a lot of discussion now about, everybody's mad at China. Well, I'm only buying non-Chinese stuff. Well, no, you're not, because there's not enough stuff there for you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
But the interesting question I posed to somebody this morning on Twitter was, are we prepared to pay the price for what it'll cost to have non-Chinese made goods? Are we prepared as a country to see the price of that roll of toilet paper go up, however much it's going to go up because it's made here instead of there?
Now,
it's an interesting question, because then when you start talking about changing minimum wage and things like that, then you have to get serious about that, because you have to get this up to where people can afford it.
But is it possible to do that and to keep?
Yeah.
Now, I think that, let me backtrack. I had a client that it was American Standard, not the toilet maker, but they manufacture something else. And they were manufactured tools. Their manufacturing process was in China. And this was 15 years ago. They started pulling their manufacturing back into the U.S. And I asked, so how's this affecting the sales price of your tools? I mean, how much did it go up. And he said, oddly enough, there was a little bit of an increase, but it was so insignificant that it hasn't affected our business.
I think it depends on where you're manufacturing it, Gary.
That's true.
So if you're in an open, I had this discussion with someone as well. If you're in an open shop state, it's a whole lot different than if you're in a union state. And I'm not anti-union.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact. It's the reality is if you're in Texas and you have that manufacturing plant and you have a non-unionized workforce, they're substantially more competitive than a unionized workforce.
So is the southern part of the United States more of an open workplace?
So, but I'm certainly not an expert on that. I just know the places that I know. I think states like Florida, Texas, I think most of the southern states are just not as unionized as the north. Not with every industry, but certainly with a lot of manufacturing.
And then that's going to throw another wrinkle in all this. Is there going to be pressure for a company that has union workers? Is there going to be pressure to pull out of the unions? Is that going to cause pressure on the unions?
I think that's going to go both ways.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be political pressure to add unions, and I think there will be business pressure to not add unions or do away with them. I think you're going to have the yin and the yang, like you always do in this thing. I mean, I don't think I don't know. Who knows? And you're probably talking about something that takes years to unravel. So it's interesting though that we're having these discussions in the way this event in 2 months. In 2 months, 3 months, however long you want to count it. I count it from when we shut down.
48 days.
Changed our world.
Yeah.
Changed our world.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the good things you see with people being homebound?
Families are reconnecting. However, there's opposite of that. There are families that are disconnecting. Unfortunately, but for the most part, I think that families are reconnecting, and they're doing a lot of things together. I mean, just in observing my daughter and her family, the kids, they have their school the first part of the day, and my daughter's been working from home for a long time. She would have to go into the office occasionally, but for the most part works from home. So that part of her routine did not change that much, except when the kids came home and she had to teach them or help make sure they did their lessons online. So that's been kind of tough. But during this process, they've bought bicycles. And so the 5 of them will go out and ride bicycles every day.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So
I see that all over my neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing it everywhere. I see couples, older, married, mature people. I see young families. I ride my bicycle down here at River Legacy in Arlington, which is a huge park. I can get a 16-mile bike ride in. That's how long this trail is. And I am so impressed that when I go to this place, and it's got a huge open area. I'm talking, maybe 100 acres of just wide open with little, places for the kids to play and just big green fields. You can get out there and fly a kite or whatever. It's really neat. It's right along the Trinity River. So you have forested areas that I ride my bike through and all kinds of, it's really a fabulous place.
And that's where the alligators are, right?
There's probably some in there. That's where you see, when you watch my Facebook, you'll see me taking pictures of copperhead snakes and stuff like that. And the thing that impresses me when I'm riding through there is how many families I see together. I love it. I think it's so powerful. I do. The families are our greatest tool we have as a society.
Yeah.
Is our family.
When they went and bought the bikes, the bike shop said they're slam busy because there's so many people buying bicycles.
That's why I'm here today
keep up.
instead of on my bicycle, because it's being repaired and it's taken almost a week already. Yeah, and it still wasn't ready today. Yeah, no, they're slammed. Yeah. They are slammed.
Yeah,
yeah. But now there's another part of this that I think the psychologists will be talking about for generations, and that's our separation. Because our separation we're now communicating virtually, and we don't have human-to-human contact. In fact, we've made it horrible. We've made it. When I say that, we've made it. You make people feel guilty if they touch you. Like if I walked up and just put my hand on your shoulder, hey man, how you doing? I go, oh man, I wonder if I should have done that.
Yeah.
And before I shake someone's hand, I go, are we shaking hands? Because I don't care. I'm like, whatever, I'll shake your hand. But I have to ask permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that part of what makes me complete, and this is just me, but I'm a hugger and I'm a physical guy. I'll shake your hand. I'll give you a man hug. I don't care. To me, it's just it makes me feel good, and that's how I communicate. And I don't know how we're gonna. I hope we have to get past this thing where we don't have human contact.
Yeah,
we just have to have it. I mean, we're herd animals, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I think the social media has helped, but there's no replacing the one-on-one personal interaction.
No.
But it's helped, I think.
Well, and this may help in some other ways. One of the things that could come out of this as well, Gary, if you think about it, is we're having... whether it's virtual, but it's a real face-to-face contact, even virtually, which I believe that the generation behind us, my son's generation, has a real problem with that because they get on there and they text nasty things to each other, or they tweet it, or whatever it is they want to say ugly to each other. Well, they do that because they don't have to look somebody in the eye and say it to them. It's really easy to type it and say, you're a dog here. But you're not going to look somebody physically, man to man, in the eye and say the same thing. And so there's been this, I have felt, as I've dealt with millennials, whatever you want to call them, people younger, the generation behind us, I've had a hard time with that in business because I don't ever feel like I have their full attention. I think that what has their attention is that phone in their hand. And I have a hard time communicating like that because I want to look at you in the eye. I want to have that discussion. I want to have that reaction, that human reaction, and they just don't have it. I mean, they only react to that phone. It's stunning when you're in a meeting like that.
Yeah.
And that's not all of them, but that's some of the people I have to deal with, and it's very frustrating for me.
Well, there are some that's not the millennials that I've come across some people our age that are so dependent upon their phone. It's amazing, and they just always own it. So,
well, I think that we're going to learn some good lessons out of this. And we'll certainly get through it here in the next few months.
There's going to be some remodeling projects that contractors will need to take care of because people staying at home have tried to tackle some DIY projects that had no business tackling those DIY projects.
It's going to be, honey, they open the office back up, call a contractor.
Yeah. Now, I did read something where there's it's really caused an increase in people painting their own homes. Now, painting a wall is,
Sounds simple.
yeah, it can be done. I mean, the guy that we use for painting to paint our house, he's done 2 houses for us. He does all the work for my daughter and son-in-law, and he's a pro. I mean, he knows how to do it. But I can get up there and I can slap a coat of paint on the wall, but it's not going to be like Oscar does it.
It's never like Oscar does it.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I can put paint on a wall, but I always think it looks better when Oscar does it.
Yes, yes. So I think there's going to be some DIY projects that people will have to bring a contractor in to fix it.
Well, there's another interesting aspect to this as well. Like I have a new sponsor. Well, they were ready to sign up and get rolling right when all this hit. So hopefully they'll be back. But one of the things that they do is home offices. And
oh yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I think that there's a huge industry about to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that home office industry. I think that the space management in houses now. Every house I look at now, I'm talking to somebody about doing a home office.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about organization of space so that they can work out of their homes. And it's quite interesting. It goes all the way through not just the space planning, but you have to sometimes, I looked at one the other day, and they were going to have to take a formal part of the house. When you walk in the front door, there's like a little dining room. Well, we're going to have to turn that into an office / overflow bedroom. And so it has to be done tastefully.
Are you going to do a Murphy bed in there?
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet, but I've done quite a few of them actually over the years, where we'll go in and put up, instead of putting a wall up, I'll put up maybe double pocket doors that are French doors, something really nice where it looks really good. And I might, the last one I did a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, we'll maybe center the doors up on the fireplace. Like this one we did, we closed it off, and it was his office, but it was still sort of the formal living room with the fireplace. So everything's centered on that. So there's a lot that goes into the planning. You don't just throw a wall up and throw a door to get in and call it good. You have to really think through these things, because your house may not be made for that space. You have to create the space to fit the house. And I think that there's a budding, I wouldn't say a budding industry. I would just say a lot more emphasis being put on an already existing industry in home remodeling.
Yeah.
Plus, you think, you work out of your home, your family's there now. How many people are going to continue to homeschool their kids? How many people are kind of going, I kind of like it better having them here?
Yeah. Somebody made the comment, I don't remember who it was. I don't know if it's a family member or what, but, their observation was, well, how is it that the kids can get their schoolwork done in 2 to 3 hours, but when they're at home, but when they're at school, they're there for 8 hours?
Yeah.
Really? And
I think you need to have them in that classroom, though. I think that there's a lot more to school than just lessons, right?
Yeah, there's the interaction with the other kids. Now, I will say this for homeschooling. There are homeschooling groups, maybe associations, whatever, but they work that out to where there's a group where the kids are homeschooled, and then they will have their planned activities with other homeschool kids.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And my wife, she taught for 30 years. In the last 10 to 15 years of her teaching, she was working with homeschool students primarily. They were the they were the best students for her in terms of teaching piano. They were attentive. They were focused.
They knew how to learn.
They knew how to learn.
Taught how to. They were teachable.
They were teachable. That's right. But yet they were pretty well adjusted in terms of socializing. And I was real impressed. Well, since all this stuff started where the kids are all of a sudden they're stuck at home and the teachers are scrambling to figure out a way to teach the kids at home, so they're using Zoom. I've heard of some schools have contacted the homeschool groups to say, what do we do? What can you suggest to us? So here we are.
They're losing students, Gary.
Oh, I know.
And they don't know what to do. I mean, there's a lot of them that are fighting against it too. They're saying, "Oh, no, we don't want to allow homeschooling."
We knew some people that they traveled. They were in the ministry and they traveled a lot. I mean, they traveled around the world, and they took their kids with them. And the kids were in their teens, and so they could
best education you could possibly have.
Exactly. Yeah. But they were connected up to a school, a physical school, that developed a homeschool process for them. So they were responsible to the brick and mortar school, but they were also homeschooled. So they got the best of both worlds.
Wow.
And I'm hoping to see some of that take place now, because the public school system has a lot to offer, but there's a lot that could be learned and done differently. But same thing with homeschooling. So
well, I think our world's changed, hasn't it?
It has.
In the last 2 months, our world has changed like major.
We're not in the new normal yet.
No.
We're in transition normal.
We don't even know what it's going to be anymore.
And then who knows what new normal is going to look like when we get there.
Who knows what normal's gone. Let's just take that out of the dictionary.
Yeah.
Well, I've sure enjoyed visiting with you.
Yeah, same here.
It's been a lot of fun.
Same here.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Look, we need to keep doing this, and then we'll eventually we'll work through it. Now, we may be 70 years old by then, but
yeah. Well, I think our timing is good because the lawnmower guy is the yard guy has just started mowing out there.
Well, and I just had the trash guy go by, so you know.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. Well, stay safe. Stay in if you can.
You too.
And I'm glad we're able to do this.
The audience, contact me or Gary. I'm Alex at alexguthrie.net or Alex at remodelrevolutionradio.com or Alex at remodelrev.com.
And find him on Facebook too. He's on Facebook.
I'm all over Facebook. You can't miss me.
And now, during this process, you've been doing some replays, because you could not get into the
studio, and I wasn't really set up. And with your help, thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
Being patient with me, but with your help and working a lot of bugs out, I finally got where I could record these shows, interviews, and so I have several of them that are in the pipeline right now that we'll be playing the next few weeks. And then right when I get one in there the other day, I get the letter from them saying, well, you can start coming back in. I said, I kind of like these people we were just talking about. I like working from home. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, you've got all our contact information. Send a message to me or Gary. And, tell us any subject you want us to conquer. I always tell people when I'm inviting myself to go fishing in their boat that it's free lessons and worldly advice.
Well, this has been awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So again, give your website and all your contact information.
Alex, website, remodelrevolutionradio.com. That's www. And or alexguthrie.net. That's another way to reach me. And if you have any work you want done on your home, you want estimates, if you want advice on how to go about getting started on a project you're thinking about doing, new home remodel, whatever it is, give me a call. Yeah, I don't charge for that.
And Alex is the man. He can take care of it for you.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we'll schedule another one maybe for next week.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I'm sure there's lots of things that will crop up between now and then that we could talk about. So, And I'm Gary Neidert. If again, the Home Improvement Report podcast, and if you want to get in touch with me, go to the website, thehomeimprovementreport.com, or you can call me at 972-771-7899. So,
hey, and check out the Remodel Revolution podcast.
That's right.
That's where you'll hear this thing.
That's right. Yeah. So, anyway, now if they go to your website, they'll be able to find out all the different places the podcast is hosted on, correct?
It's hosted everywhere, yes.
Okay.
Whatever your favorite podcast site is, just key in Remodel Revolution, and if it doesn't pop up, try another one.
There you go.
or send me a message, and I'll make sure I get on it. But I think I'm on about 20 of them right now. I don't know if there's any I've missed.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. Well, cool. Well, great.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun as always.
Yeah, same here. I appreciate you being on the podcast, and again, we'll try to do this next week.
All right, brother.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
All right.
All right. I trust you enjoyed our conversation. As I said earlier, I always enjoy his point of view along with what he has to say about current events. It was a great time with him. Call Alex for your next remodeling project or a new home build. He can do both and do both quite well. Go to his website, alexguthrie.net, to contact him about remodeling or home building. Also, listen to his podcast at remodelrevolutionradio.com. Plus, you can find him on Facebook. Same thing. Look up Remodel Revolution Radio. Again, go check it out. You'll enjoy listening to his podcast. Well, what's coming up next on the Home Improvement Report? I'm constantly searching for new information in the home improvement industry that consumers and contractors will enjoy. Now, I bet you probably know someone that would be a great guest for the Home Improvement Report, right? Well, let me know a little bit about them and their story. I'm always looking for great stories of business successes. You know, the story behind the story. Go check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, and more. Subscribe to the podcast, and you can go back and listen to previous episodes. And of course, you can always find us at thehomeimprovementreport.com. Have you ever struggled to find the right marketing tool? You know, a promotional product that can imprint your sales message on the minds of your prospects. Whether you're looking for a giveaway item for a trade show, which they will come back at one point in the future. So get ready. So a trade show, a giveaway item for a trade show, for marketing promotions or more, go check out masterworkmarketing.com. Me, will help guide you to what you need to make the most impact with your project. Go to masterworkmarketing.com for more information, or just call 972-771-7899. Contact me if you have any questions regarding today's podcast, or if you'd like more information on Masterwork Marketing. I'm Gary Neidert, and you've just experienced the Home Improvement Report podcast. Call me, 972-771-7899. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.